This video walks you through some typical definitional conceptual questions that you could be asked. One benefit of budgeting is that it coordinates the activities of the entire organization. True or false? And that would be true, because that's one of the major purposes of budgeting, is that it helps coordinate the entire organization and get their buy-in. Number 2, both planning and control are needed for an effective budgeting system. That is also true. The master budget is a network consisting of many separate budgets that are interdependent. And we've seen that with our diagram that shows the order of preparation for the master budget. So that is also true. Number 4, planning and control are essentially the same thing. And I have here, planning involves developing objectives and preparing budgets, whereas control involves the steps taken to achieve the objectives. So two very different definitions of each of those steps. Number 5, sales forecasts are drawn up after the cash budget has been completed, because only then are the funds available for marketing known. And we know that the sales budget is the first budget prepared. So therefore this is false. Number 6, both variable and fixed manufacturing overhead costs are included in the manufacturing overhead budget. And we know by looking at our master budget overview video that the manufacturing overhead budget does include both variable and fixed cost. So that would be true. Number 7, in the selling and administrative budget, the non-cash charges such as depreciation are added to the total budgeted selling and administrative expenses to determine the expected cash disbursements for selling and administrative. So what we're trying to get to here is, I want my expected cash disbursements for selling and administrative. Well, it's cash disbursements, and as we've already learned, depreciation is a non-cash expense. So the answer here is false. Number 8, which of the following represents the normal sequence in which the indicated budgets are prepared? So one of the things I like to do in these type of questions, when it's multiple choice, is go through each of them and say, why is it not right? And here it says direct materials, cash, and sales for A. And what it would be is it would be sales, direct materials, and cash. B, production, cash, income statement. Well, that definitely seems like it's correct. C, sales, balance sheet, direct labor. Well, we know sales is the first one, but it's direct labor. Balance sheet is the last one. D, production, manufacturing overhead, and sales. And again, we know sales should be number 1, then production, then manufacturing overhead. So B is definitely the best answer. Number 9, which of the following is not? And again, I strongly recommend that you circle, bring highlighters so that you make sure that you are focusing on the correct words here, and not as important. Not a benefit of budgeting. Well, some of the benefits are, for budgets, they define goals and objectives. They help management think about the future. They communicate plans. They coordinate the company's activities. They help the company allocate resources, and they uncover potential bottlenecks. So, formalizes managers' planning efforts. Sounds good. Uncovers potential bottlenecks. It sets benchmarks for evaluation performance. That's going to help you. That's going to be covered under defining goals and objectives, as well as allocating resources. It reduces the need for tracking actual cost activity. Well, that's definitely not correct. Part of a budget is that you also then at the end, which we're going to learn in a future chapter, want to compare your budget to your actual to see how well did your budget help you project your revenues and your cost. Number 10. Self-imposed budgets typically are A. Not subject to review by higher levels of management, since to do so would contradict the participative aspects of the budgeting process. Doesn't sound right there, because again, even though it's self-imposed budgets which help you, doesn't make sense here, because just because they're self-imposed, they are still have the whole participatory levels of all management. So here, so this says it's not subject to higher levels of management or review by higher level management. That would be incorrect. B, not subject to review by high levels of management except in specific cases. Again, it would not be correct, because part of the advantages of self-imposed budgets is it helps, again, individuals at all levels of the organization are viewed as members of a team. The estimates help you give you a more accurate estimate if they're prepared by the front line, which is why they're self-imposed. It's going down lower into the organization versus being prepared by top management. So they usually will give you better estimates, because the down further in the organization, they have a better idea of what's more accurate. They're going to help increase motivation, and it's going to help avoid unrealistic expectations. So C says subject to review by higher levels of management in order to prevent the budgets from becoming too loose, and that's important. You want them to be realistic. So that sounds like a good one, but let's make sure with D, not critical to the success of the budgeting program. Well, it doesn't even make sense. Of course it's critical. So C is the best one, because again, they're subject by higher levels of management. Got to have the buy-in from top to down. And also, higher management wants to make sure, since the budgets are being created from lower levels of the organization, that they're realistic and not too easy to obtain. 11. Which of the following represents the correct order in which the indicated budget documents for a manufacturing company would be prepared? Sales budget, cash budget, direct materials, direct labor. Now, on this one, cash budget comes after these two guys. B, production budget, sales. Well, we know again sales should be the first one, so it has to be in front of production. Then it would be direct materials and direct labor. Sales budget, cash budget, production budget, direct materials. Again, cash is in the wrong order. Should be after these two guys. D, selling administrative expenses comes after the product cost budgets. Cash budget, budgeted income statement, budgeted balance sheet. This is the correct one. Number 12. A company has been forced by competition to put much more emphasis on planning and controlling its cost. Accordingly, the company's controller has suggested initiating a formal budgeting process. Which of the following steps will not help the company gain maximum acceptance by employees of the proposed budgeting system? And this one here, think about it. If somebody is telling you that we're going to incorporate something new, you don't want to implement it quickly, because you need to get buy-in. You need people to feel comfortable with it. So A says implementing the change quickly. Well, just right off the cuff, that doesn't sound like the right answer, but let's make sure. B, including departmental responsibility reports, only those items that are under the department's manager's controls. And that's really important, because what that's talking about is I don't want to hold accountable somebody for costs that they can't control, because you don't get the buy-in, and it definitely does not help motivation. So that definitely would not be one that's not going to gain maximum acceptance. C, demonstrating top management support. Well, that's going to gain acceptance. And D, ensuring that favorable deviations of actual results from the budget as well as unfavorable deviations are discussed with the responsible managers. So again, we're going to hold the managers accountable and responsible for costs that they can control. You're going to be discussing with them both the favorable and unfavorable deviations. So that definitely is another way to gain maximum acceptance. So A, implementing the change quickly is the one you do not want to do, because you've got to give people time to digest something different and also to get comfortable with it. 13. A continuous or perpetual budget. A, is prepared for a range of activity so that the budget can be adjusted for changes in activity, and that would be a flexible budget. B is a plan that's updated monthly or quarterly, dropping one period and adding another. That definitely sounds like perpetual. Keep knowing what, always getting rid of what's old, putting what's added on what's new. C is a strategic plan that does not change. Perpetual means it should be continuously changing. D is used in companies that experience no change in sales. Well, if you did not experience any change in sales, you can then use a static budget. So B is the best answer. It's updated monthly or quarterly, dropping one period, adding another. 14. Whoops, sorry. Which of the following statements is not correct? The sales budget is a starting point in preparing the master budget. Sounds good. B, the sales budget is constructed by multiplying the expected sales in units by the sales price. Pretty much the sales budget has 3 lines. What are the number of units I plan on selling? What is the selling price per unit? What's my total sales? So that B sounds right. C, the sales budget generally is accompanied by a computation of expected cash receipts for the forthcoming budget period, and we saw that in our master budget overview, that you have a sales budget, and then you're going to figure out when and how are you going to collect this. And that's based on historical information that tells you how much do you collect in each period of time that a sale is made, and then how much you're going to collect in subsequent periods. And then D, the cash budget must be prepared prior to the sales budget. And that's not correct. It's prepared after. And way after, actually. So D is not correct. 15. Budgeted production needs are determined by. So here, we're going to go to the formula sheet. Go back to the information. And you can see here, it's budgeted sales plus desired ending inventory less beginning. So which one says that? And if we look at it, it says adding budgeted sales in units to the desired ending and deducting beginning. It's exactly what the formula sheet says. B, adding budgeted sales in units to beginning and deducting desire. That's reversed. Adding budgeted sales in units to desired ending. Well, it's missing subtracting the beginning inventory. And D, deducting beginning inventory in units from budget sales. And technically, you could say that's correct, but it has to also add in desired ending. So A is the correct answer based on looking at our formula sheet. 16. The budgeted amount of raw materials to be purchased is determined by, again, going right to that formula sheet. You've got direct materials budget on there. It's very similar to the production budget. What are my production needs times my cost per unit? That's my material needed for production. I also want to add desired ending, and I'm going to subtract my beginning. So the one that's going to say that is going to be C. Adding the desired ending inventory of raw materials to the raw materials needed for production and subtracting the beginning. And then 17. Which of the following is not correct regarding the manufacturing overhead budget? A, and again this is saying that it's not correct. Total budgeted cash disbursements for manufacturing overhead is equal to total of budgeted variable and fixed manufacturing overhead. This is wrong because we have to deduct depreciation expense because it's a non-cash expense. B, manufacturing overhead costs should be broken down by cost behavior. Again, cost behavior means variable versus fixed costs, which it does. C, the manufacturing overhead budget should provide a schedule of all costs of production other than direct materials and direct labor. And that's correct because direct materials and direct labor have their own budgets. D, a schedule showing budgeted cost disbursements for manufacturing overhead should be prepared for use in developing the cash budget. And what that means is I'm taking my total manufacturing overhead cost and I'm subtracting depreciation expense. And the last line is my cash disbursement. And that's what's going to go onto the cash budget. So the only one that's not right is A.